Hello, it's Chaplain73 here. Thank you for joining me again for another interview. I'm here today with Mr. Edwards, all the way from Australia. Hello, Mr. Edwards.
Hey, Chaplain73, how are you?
Yeah, not so bad, not so bad. So I will just crack on with the questions. And the first one, just as an introduction, who are you, what do you do, and where are you based?
I'm Mr. Edwards. I'm based in sunny Sydney. I guess I started off as a graphic designer, really, so I'm very interested in print, particularly. So I do a lot of paste up, screen print, stencil, and collage, really. So I suppose pop art would cover kind of genre I do. But I'm interested in that reproduction of, not just one-offs, but being able to, each one slightly different, but that kind of transition as things move along, they get slightly different, but fundamentally the same, I guess.
Yeah.
That's what makes me tick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did notice there's a pop art vibe to your, when I was looking at your Instagram, there's that pop art vibe.
Yeah.
But you kind of twist things slightly.
Well, I was thinking about it when you were talking about doing this interview, and I was looking back on, I suppose, what you'd say were my influences, and it was like, wow, yeah, pop is where I come from, but in a very fundamental way, I was thinking about my childhood.
Yeah.
And I come from a very working class background. I grew up in London, or just outside London, in a place called Ilford, and there was no art in there was no art in my childhood, really.
Yeah.
My dad was a silkscreen printer, and that sounds a bit arty, but he called it a show card printer, and he worked for a chain of supermarkets in the East End, and what he used to screen print were things that said, baked beans 2p off, and prices are down, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But what he did do, he used to bring home lots of paper. At that, no one had home offices then, so I think all the kind of paper that people had was like a couple of sheets of lilac, Basildon Bond, that they would be in a sideboard somewhere for writing letters. So I had access to lots of paper. I was always drawing, and he used to bring home like promotional calendars for ink companies. And I remember one sticks in my mind, which is I think it's called Scotland the Brave, and it's a charge of the Scots Greys, and it's a famous scene from Waterloo. It's a great big cavalry charge by Lady Elizabeth Butler, I think is the artist. And that one stuck in my mind for some reason. So there was a bit of art there, but I was just thinking that there was no pictures on the walls. There was one like imitation constable in a plastic frame, and I think there was some what do they call it, painting by numbers. I think my dad had done for those and framed them. And then they didn't have a bookcase. They had, at the After 8 Mints come in those boxes. I think my dad had brought from work a display case for After 8 Mints. So it was as wide as an After 8 Mint box. And it was however many books fitted in there, which was about 6 paperbacks. That was all the books they had. And they had, I think it was called a K-Tel something O-matic, and it held 12 records. And when you pulled the first one, they all flipped over. So about 12 records they had, and that was all the art there was. And art was the kind of source of ridicule, really. My mum used to go on about Andy Warhol's baked bean tin, which of course she meant the Campbell's soup cans.
Yeah.
And they also used to go on about Carl Andre's bricks that the Tate Gallery bought. I think it was Equivalent 8, it's called. And how ridiculous, spent £1 million on a load of bricks. Actually, £6,000, wasn't it? But they used to laugh at art. So the only stuff I got was like pop art, which was record sleeves, magazines. I used to have a lot of comics. All the kind of sources of pop art were there. That's where pop art came from. Just the popular art that everybody, packaging stuff that was lying around. So in that sense, that's what I was getting at, where the pop art comes from. It was just stuff that's always around. And then all I do now is I realize it's a lot of ideas is influenced by the actual pop artists, but I just kind of try and just put a little twist on it. I think there's a bit of humor in there. And I collect a lot. I mean, a lot of, I can hardly move in this room for boxes of magazines, and even old cardboard I find in the gutter, I pick it up. I think that would come in handy for something. It's a nice bit of distress type on that. And then I scan it all in, spend hours scanning all this stuff in, and then I just take it out of context and mix things up, put them together and create a new meaning, really. So that was gonna question 2, I think.
Yeah. I mean, no worries. I don't mind going off track at times. So going back to the bit you said, obviously you do some paste up art. As a paste up artist, your work's seen by a lot of people. Obviously, depending on where it's placed. So do you feel, in that context, that art can actually change the world, or change someone's world or whatever?
Well, certainly, because I think that there's a lot of things. I don't know. There's a lot of things I want to say about this. To start with, I think people are bombarded with images all the time, aren't they? I mean, it's the reason people don't like you pasting up is because they don't mind advertisers sticking stuff up because they're paying for it. They just don't like the fact you're not paying for it. I'm sure if you paid, they wouldn't mind. So you're bombarded with these images all the time, and I'd like to think we're putting better images, more things that make you smile or thought-provoking. But deep down, I think people are intimidated by art. It's the way it's been kind of fed to us that you need art critics to understand art, and you look at stuff and you don't understand it, and someone has to explain why it's good, and you still think it just looks like a pile of bricks to me, and you see those little galleries in the West End of London, and there's no one in them because there's no prices. People won't even just go in and have a look because the whole thing is too intimidating, and to a certain extent they don't go to galleries either, and public art, they look at it and don't really understand it. So I guess I'm trying to put stuff up that it's art, and it's a bit more accessible, I hope. And so I think in that way, the more that increases everybody's visual vocabulary, and I think you find that's why a lot of street artists now are very collectible, and because people have got used to seeing it, and they're not scared of it. They understand it. They know where it's coming from. They've seen it on the street. They quite like it, and now they want it in their house. And then it's acting like art does. It's getting more valuable, but there's a lot more people engaged in that art market. I think the market for prints now, particularly a lot of street artists are just converting their stuff into print and sculpture and stuff. And there's a really big market in it, I think, and I think that's why Banksy's so people get it. It's easy to get. I mean, some of his stuff is a bit.
I think that was the problem. That was the problem with art, is that art went. I mean, years ago, art used to be quite representative of things, and then it suddenly went away from that and became something else, and it became a plaything for the elite, if you like. It was kind of it collectible. It was worth lots of money. No one understood it. The less it was understandable, the more valuable it was, almost. And I think that street art has taken that taken it back to, you know, being accessible, being understandable, being
It's
slightly
accessible.
cheeky, slightly play on words, slightly, you know, commenting on things that are happening in the world, all those kind of things and play as well. Play is, there's quite a lot of play in what people do on the street, which I think people just find refreshing when you look back at where art went. You know, it's kind of Banksy's
I think that's the key. I mean, it is because it's on the street. People do play it because it's not got that really important. Everybody's going to take this apart. You know, it's everyone just expressing themselves, and it is, you know, it is affordable if you're going to buy it.
yeah,
it's fairly cheap, you know. So I think it has changed the art world dramatically.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel that too. You know, and I get that from, you know, the kind of art that I look at and the kind of art that I like is that kind of accessible art, that stuff that people want to, you know, want to put in their front room or whatever. You know, it's not twee, it's not, you know, it's just something that's a bit different. So going back to,
I think the thing is, art's always subjective, and yeah, there's time lag. That's going to be a problem, but that way. Carry on. I was just going
to... No. So going back to what and who inspired you. Obviously, you've got pop art. Is there anything else that, you know, inspired you growing up?
Well, yeah. The other thing was I went to a terrible school, really, and well, I thought it was terrible. Maybe it's because I was terrible. I don't know. I wasn't a very good student. But I had one teacher who, you know, everyone has one teacher that really inspires them, and that was my French teacher. I was quite good at languages for some reason, and my French teacher used to take us to the Courtois Institute to look at all the French Impressionists, because they were French. So that was my first brush really with real art, and again, the Impressionists are pretty accessible. You know, it's all very chocolate box stuff, and but you know, there was a lot of, you know, like the pointillist style is like after I left art school, I worked on a magazine for a while. I used to work on ID magazine. It's just like a street fashion mag, and it was very low budget. It was almost like a fanzine, really, and we couldn't afford to get proofs of the issue. So all I got were the separation films in black, and I had to try and work out what it was going to look like when it was printed.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to go to the printers. As it came off the press, it was incredibly exciting. It was the first time I'd seen. There were no computers in those days. First time I'd seen anything in colour. It was all worked in black and white, and suddenly it appeared in colour. And all that kind of half-tone, the dots, very much like the Impressionist pointillism style. And I think that was subconsciously in there that got me really into print. So I'm a huge fan of half-tones, and I think also when I was at college. So I'm going back to, you know, analog days, really, pre-computer.
Yeah.
So I used to start. The one thing they had at college was a cupboard full of old Life magazine and Picture Post, all these from about 1930 to about 1970. So that golden age of you know, old advertising and stuff. So a lot of it was all black and white halftones because they printed in black and white, and that was really good for photocopying and blowing up really big because it was made of dots. It enlarged really well, and again, very pop art. You know, you could make. Well, that's where I started playing with all these kind of halftone images and line art, and then when I worked on the magazine, the first couple of runs, they just used to print in the CMYK. So the first couple came off were just yellow, and then the next ones would be yellow and pink, and then the third one would be yellow, pink, and blue, and then the fourth one would be all of them. So you keep all those sheets half done, and I'd use that as inspiration to just think, oh, that looks, just using cyan and yellow together, that's pretty cool. And kind of what I do now, that's in my blood, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Very low tech. And I still, because computers now are so, can be so perfect. If I'm doing type, I will often just put a line slightly 0.5%, so it's nothing's perfectly straight. It all looks like I've done it on a drawing board, or I build in imperfections or smudges, or I have to work really hard to make it look like it's not perfect. And that's probably why I like screen print, because each one is slightly different.
Mm-hmm.
And fortunately, because I'm not very good at screen printing, they come out looking like Warhols because they're drawing in the screen or out of register. And in fact, I love out of register. I'm always putting stuff deliberately out of register, which I've got to say does help, because I don't have to be technically very good.
Brilliant. I tried screen printing at college. I did a course at college, and screen printing was part of it. And we were using secondhand screens, and I just found it incredibly frustrating.
Well, that's where I started, and I think everybody ripped the screen on the first day. That was just how it was. And then I didn't really do it again. I did it. I just left college and I went to a working man's club in Camden did an evening class, and I didn't touch it for years and years. And then I suddenly, I don't know, just had this urge to get back into it. Now I can't stop. It's
a screen print addiction.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is. It's weird. Well, and all the inks are water-based now, so I can't even say it's the chemicals, because they're pretty safe.
So what advice would you give to somebody starting out as an artist? Was there any advice you were given that you wish you'd listened to, or that you wish you'd ignored, or was there any advice that you wish you'd had?
I'm trying to think of any advice I got. I don't ever remember getting any advice, to be honest. Apart when I was at college, this is the only piece of advice I got. I couldn't work out. I don't know. When you apply to an art school, you have a first choice and a second choice in case you don't get into the first choice. And I wanted to go to St Martin's, and it was back in those days. There weren't any foreign students really, so there were like 30 places, and about 600 people applied for those 30 places. And I looked at loads of colleges everywhere, and I couldn't find anywhere I liked. And I thought, if I find somewhere that looks as good, I'll go there. And I just couldn't find anywhere. So I said to my tutor, I really want to go there, but I don't know where to put as my second choice, because it's quite hard to get in. And he said, what's the worst place you looked at? And I won't say where it was, but I mentioned a college I thought that was the worst. And he goes, right, put that as your second choice, and then you'll have to make sure that you get into your first choice, won't you? It's like burning your bridges, which I did. And luckily I got in, but I don't think I would have the balls to do that now. But that was the only advice. Well, I did a bit. My advice to people is, especially, I don't know if artists need much advice, because art is something in you. You've just got to do. It's like saying, what kind of advice would you give to extremely violent people? They don't really need advice. They just kind of do what they do, don't they? But I would say never try and please somebody else. Like, just do your own thing. I think if you try and make stuff for someone else and you're not very happy with it because you're trying to do what you think other people want, and then if they're not happy with it, well, nobody's happy. But at least if you do stuff yourself and no one else likes it, at least you're happy.
Yeah, that's been quite
Just
a.
be. I mean, I like what I do, you know, and if other people don't like it, then obviously there's something wrong with them. It's not my. It's not my
Yeah,
art.
I mean that's been quite a common theme. I quite often ask artists that about what the advice is, and it's been quite a common theme of make sure that you are doing stuff that you like, because at the end of the
Yeah,
day, art is so subjective that if you like
absolutely.
it, there probably are some people out there who will like it, but you're never gonna please the masses. It's just
No, and I think you can tell when somebody's tried to, I don't know, lose it because there's a lot of energy in it, and I think you pick up on that as well. Sometimes there's things I don't particularly like, but I like the energy of it, and I kind of grow to like it just because it's uncompromising rather than something I would like in a style that I would particularly like.
yeah.
Yeah, I can't think of. I think if you're not having fun, obviously you're doing it wrong. But that's all I can really
No,
think.
no worries.
Yeah.
Well, we're on to the final question. What's in store for the future? Do you have any planned future projects you could share with us?
Well, obviously at the moment I'm not going anywhere. So I like we were saying earlier, I've been sending a lot of stuff out. So there's a lot of I think I've got a sticker festival in Sweden
Mm-hmm.
coming up, Sticker Fest 5. There's one in Bucharest in Romania. I've just sent some stuff for. I've just done Miami Art Puzzle with the Winwood wall project. They have a big paste up wall there. So I've just been sending stuff. A lot of things happening in South America, down in Brazil. Been sending a lot of stuff that way for a couple of years now. Actually,
Mm-hmm.
it's quite a scene down there. Other than that, I'm trying to print as much as I can. Screen printing. I want to have a. I've never had a solo exhibition, so
Right.
I'm just trying to get a lot of stuff together so I can fill a room really. But that's my next big thing is a solo exhibition. Yeah.
I think that's often quite a challenge, isn't it? When you commit to doing a solo exhibition, you've got to fill a whole gallery, and it's
Well,
like,
you got to figure out it's the expense of the whole thing, really, which is why I started off doing paste ups because it's like an exhibition, really, but it's free. It's a bit of a rort, really. The galleries want money, and then they want a percentage of the takings, and then you've got to frame everything. You got to print everything, and you got to have it all. It's quite a big event, really,
yeah.
for a one man band.
Good luck with the exhibition and getting everything together. I'll take my hat off to you.
Thank you very much.
I've been thinking about doing a solo exhibition for about 10 years now, and I might actually get around to it in another 10, I think.
Well, that's I keep thinking I'm going to run out of time, so I think that's why I'm frantically printing every chance I get.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having a chat today. It's been very educational because I didn't know much about your work before.
It's been my pleasure.
And it's been really enjoyable listening to
No,
you.
even less than.
No, it has been really enjoyable listening to you because obviously you've had quite a journey, and it's great to. I love talking to fellow artists. So
Yeah, me too. It's been great. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much. And if you like what you've seen and heard today, then please hit subscribe below and subscribe to my channel. I will be interviewing lots more artists over the coming months and years. So yeah, I look forward to joining you again on another interview. Thank you very much.